Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head to Latvia for the first time in over a year, if memory's serving me correctly. So this will be only the second Latvian craft beer that I've reviewed for you here on the channel and the third Latvian review overall. Way back in 2013 I reviewed a beer from one of the macro producers, Maldegans, if I'm remembering the name right, and then last year, so there was a 6-year gap in these Latvian reviews, I reviewed one of the IPAs from Arpus, which was really impressive actually, and that seems to be a very up and coming brewery actually, so I would recommend that you try some of those if you get the chance. I need to try and get some more of their stuff actually to review for you here on the channel. But for this review we've got another brewery who I have never tried anything from before, and I always enjoy introducing you guys to new breweries, particularly when they're from countries like Latvia where it's very difficult to get a hold of anything from. So for this review then we are going to have a look at a contractor gypsy brewery, however you want to term them. So this time we are going to go to ODU Brewery for the first time, and we're having a taste of the Haze in a Maze Silver Edition. So this one comes in at 7% ABV. It's a New England hazy IPA, however you want to call it, and it's got a pretty impressive hop bill in it actually, so we will talk about that a little bit more later on. So yeah, very curious to see how this one turns out. This was a beer that I just randomly stumbled across in Kiosk over in Copenhagen, and hopefully this is the start of Latvian beers starting to get out there a little bit more actually, because they are very difficult to find at the moment. So fingers crossed we see more of them, because I've heard that the craft beer scene is really starting to kick off there. Estonia, of course, we know has a very impressive scene. You saw me review a couple of beers from Lithuania recently actually, and I was impressed with those. So yeah, hopefully we start to get more Latvian and Lithuanian things across the continent now. It is always cool to try different beers from different European countries, of course. So yeah, really curious to see how this one turns out. In advance of the history section of this video, a massive shout out to whichever one of the founders it was that I was speaking to over Facebook. These guys sent me a Microsoft Word document with a really nicely done history of the brewery. So I rearranged it a little bit just to make the video kind of flow and things really nicely. But yeah, a huge thank you to them for taking the time to provide me with all the information for this video, and I hope that you guys enjoy that history section in this one. So yeah, as we always do, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from ODU Brewery. Very first time I'm trying one of their beers, as I mentioned. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for the Latvian beers. I will make that once I upload this video, and hopefully we can add to that fairly regularly over the next little while. I would love to see what Latvia has to offer in terms of craft beer. I would like to go and visit there as well actually, so if that's something we need to do in the future, fingers crossed. But yeah, do please get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review, especially if you are watching from Latvia, because your local knowledge is one of the big things that I love about doing this channel. I love hearing from people in different places and learning about what beers I should try. So yeah, don't hesitate to get in touch and let me know some of those local beers and breweries that you guys would recommend. But yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then, and I will apologise in advance for any bad Latvian pronunciations. There probably will be a few in this one, so you guys can laugh about it, but yeah, it's a language that I have no idea about, to be honest with you. It's, the Latvian and Lithuanian languages, they are fairly similar from what I understand, but they are quite different to any of the other language groups that you're going to have in Europe. But yeah, anyway, on to the brewery notes then. So, ODU Brewery, as I've mentioned to you already, are a contract gypsy brewery, however you want to term them, from Latvia, and the company was founded by Rihards Fuchsis and Aegis Šmagris. These guys have ridiculous CVs, by the way. It's really impressive actually, all the stuff that these guys have done. So Rihards apparently holds a master's degree in electronics from Riga Technical University. He's worked as a researcher, software developer, data scientist, and also a machine learning engineer, and he is one of the chief operating officers and one of the co-founders of a company called Data Envision, and these guys provide automated machine learning platforms for financial companies. Aegis, on the other hand, he is an occupational doctor by profession, and he works in a hospital as a medical statistician, and he's also an acting assistant and clinical stimulation specialist in the Faculty of Medicine, to be specific, the Department of Clinical Skills and Medical Technologies. He's also a qualified chemistry teacher, in a school, and he's one of the founders of a company that provides 3D printer distribution as well. Those two CVs have to be some of the most kind of crazy and complex ones that I've come across when doing these videos as well. You know, two very, very impressive guys behind this brewery actually. But in addition to that, they were also both avid home brewers. So Richard started home brewing back in 2012. The first two batches of beer that he produced were extract brews, but after this he moved on to all grain brewing. Apparently he was enjoying brewing IPAs, double IPAs and also imperial stouts, and these guys started home brewing together when both moved to ODU back in 2017. So every week or second week they would brew a new batch of beer after work, and they would also, you know, taste some new beers from the local craft beer shop as well to learn more about hops and malts and yeast and different beer styles and things like this. But in January of 2019 they met guys from Hoppala and they negotiated a deal to brew a batch of 100 litres at the brewery. The first beer that they produced was an imperial stout with lactose, coffee and tonka beans, and it was called The Night at the HES, and HES of course means hydroelectric station, which is near their home in Oldecalns. But they got really great feedback when they took this beer to Riga, and this really kind of boosted their confidence and made them want to go for it. And then later they released their first commercial beer in May of 2019. This gave them the kind of, as I say, this gave them the motivation to go forward, and they produced another batch of 100 litres, and then after this they started producing 1,000 litre batches, every month. In 2020 they started to brew their beers at the V1 brewery in Adaji, which is close to Riga, and currently they're producing around 8,000 litres of beer per month, and they've started exporting their beers to a few different countries around Europe: the Netherlands, Denmark, France, Spain, and then also Lithuania and Estonia in the Baltic region as well. And they say that all of their beers have a bit of a story to them, and I will tell you the story of these beers in the later videos of course. But apparently the main focus for them is on IPAs, both West Coast and New England hazy types. They love hoppy, these kind of hoppy beers, and just want to show off what you can actually do with these. But they do enjoy brewing stouts and sour beers as well, and apparently they're going to start a little bit of experimentation with barrel aging over the next while too. From what they say, if everything goes as planned, they are hoping to have their own brewery by 2022, and currently they're doing everything themselves actually, from the recipe creation to local deliveries and distribution and marketing and things like that. So it is still these two guys on their own that are running this brewery, so that's pretty impressive actually. But the name ODU comes from the region where both of these guys live, Oldecalns as I said, but apparently Oldecalns, it translates into, Odu means mosquito and Calns means mountain, so basically this brewery's name is the Mosquito Mountain Brewery. I hate mosquitoes, I really do. In Scotland we've got the little tiny ones called midges, but yeah, mosquitoes, oh no, don't get me started on those. But apparently the name, that's the reason why, if you look at the logo of the beer, it's kind of shaped like the mountain, because Oldecalns is the mountain near where these guys live, and it's pretty cool actually. And then you've got the letters Odu in there of course as well, as a tribute to the town that they're from. But yeah, as of September 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced just under 25 different kinds of beers according to Untappd, and from what I understand this is one of the first ones that was distributed to Denmark actually. So yeah, pretty damn cool actually, and it's really nice to be able to introduce another Latvian brewery for you here on the channel. So fingers crossed this turns out to be a really, really nice beer. As I said earlier, a huge thank you to whichever one of the founders it was that I was speaking to on Facebook. You know, they took a lot of time to you know, write that whole document for me. As I say, I rearranged it a little bit just to kind of get the flow and get it in the order that I like to do these things in. But yeah, it's awesome that a brewery will take that time and you know, and spend that amount of time to give you these notes and things like that. And they did say to me, he was saying to me he's going to send me some other beers as well actually, so that'll be really cool when that arrives too. So yeah, we'll need to see how that goes as well. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about ODU Brewery for the moment. If you want to learn more, of course, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and of course you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages if you want to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, to tell you about this beer itself then, this one is a 7% New England IPA. It's brewed with Citra, Mosaic, Galaxy, Azaka and Equinaut, so lots of different fruits coming out of this one. We know Citra gives you a good bit of mango, and lots of complexities. Mosaic is a kind of tangerine orange sort of thing. Galaxy comes from Australia, and that's got a lovely big passion fruity pungency to it. Azaka is a really interesting one, quite orangey but also quite pineapple in its composition, and then Equinox gives you some lovely limey notes actually. So yeah, really curious to see what this beer has in store for us. But I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork on this one then before we open it up. As you can see, really nicely presented actually, very, very modern kind of artwork in this one. So yeah, definitely I have to compliment them on that actually. But yeah, it says on the back here, Haze and Amaze is a double dry hopped IPA brewed with 5 different hops to obtain fruity, citrusy, juicy aroma and taste. And then yeah, it just talks about it says the same thing in Latvian basically, and tells you the list of ingredients. So yeah, on the back there you can see the two founders' signatures there. Yeah, that's pretty cool actually. Richards Fuskis and Edis Smagris, yeah, you can see that just nicely there. And there you can see the ODU symbol that I was talking about, the Mosquito Mountain Brewery actually. Oh, don't get me started on mosquitoes like I say. But yeah, 330ml can this one. I actually can't remember what I paid for this, but yeah, let's get it out and into the glass then and see how we go. Oh, this beer, this can, oh there we go. A little bit of carbonation there, which you will sometimes get on these things. But yeah, let's get it out and into the glass. Hopefully it turns out to be a nice beer. Oh, the carbonation is just a bit crazy. The can, I have to admit, was rock solid beforehand. So yeah, it's maybe just been agitated a little bit on the journey across. But yeah, let's have a look at this and see how we go. It looks like a nice beer, I have to say. Weird I'm getting carbonation like that out of it. But yeah, let's have a look at this and just see how we get on. So yeah, as you can see with this one, and as you would expect from a New England IPA, this one's poured a really nice kind of, say this is one of the kind of hazier ones that I've come across at 7%. That one's quite a nice sort of dark mixed tropical fruit juice kind of colour. As I always do with the New England IPAs, I love comparing the how do you say, just the colour of these beers to different fruit juices. You can see though when we poured this beer, it had a nice kind of 2/3 finger of a frothy, I would say, perfect white head. 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass on this one, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of that head there, but I have to say this is definitely one of the soupier and gloopier New England IPAs I've come across, especially when you consider that this one is 7% actually. As I always say with these beers, the higher you go up the alcohol scale, the more wheat and oats you have in the malt base, and you know, the more hazy it's going to get. I will tell you actually, in the glass it does feel pretty damn heavy actually, so this one, you know, it really feels, yeah, that actually feels really damn heavy actually. This is probably going to be a very, very big, dense beer by the look of it. But yeah, one of the more soupy and gloopy sort of New England IPAs that I've come across. The haze level on that is pretty damn impressive actually. So yeah, it certainly looks the part. As I say, one of the more hazy and, you know, as I say, one of the more hazy, gloopy and soupy type New England IPAs. But yeah, nothing overly surprising about the appearance of this one for what style it is. But yeah, let's have a closer look at the aroma of this one then and just see how we get on. Oh yeah. So yeah, for me, this one, the aroma of this beer, it's quite interesting. So I would say straight away with this one, you get a nice little bit, you do get a lot of that oaty kind of creaminess coming out of the beer. It does almost have a little bit of a kind of Belgian-y type note to it, just a little touch of a Belgian-y kind of farmhousey type thing there as well. So that's quite interesting, to be honest with you. It does have a nice sort of Belgian-y farmhousey type aroma coming out of it. But yeah, underneath that you do get a nice little bit of a big, you do get a good little bit of a kind of big wheaty, a big kind of wheaty bite to it. You get some nice kind of smoother oaty notes in there as well. You can smell that kind of oaty creaminess. But yeah, there is just a wee bit of a kind of farmhousey, grainy, woody sort of thing coming out of this beer as well, which is interesting. So yeah, an interesting aroma for sure. Yeah, beyond that as well, you can smell a little bit of a sort of biscuity malt coming out of it, which is quite interesting. Yeah, the aroma of this beer is certainly interesting for sure. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things, you get a nice little bit of earthiness out of it, which is the mosaic, of course. Mosaic's always going to give you a little bit of earthiness. You get some nice big floral aromaticity out of the beer, and you also get a good little bit of grassiness in there as well. If it came down to it, the green side of the hops, I would say it leans a bit more towards that kind of grassy, floral side of things actually. So yeah, carbonation on this one is quite active when you sugar the beer up, I have to say, and the head in fairness did look a little bit more kind of bumpy, to be honest with you. So yeah, I like how this one, I do like how this goes together. In terms of the fruitiness then, where to start with this? So for me, there's a good little bit of there's a lot of passion fruit coming out of this one, and that's going to be both the Citra and the Galaxy that's giving you that. Citra and Galaxy will both kind of join together and give you a big passion fruit punch from this beer. You can certainly smell a nice little bit of a kind of pineapple-y quality coming out of it. Yeah, I do get a bit of mango in there as well. You get the strong passion fruit, then you get the mango, then you get that lighter kind of pineapple-y note, and you also get that juicy tangerine quality from the you get that juicy big tangerine orange from the mosaic in this one, and I guess, you know, Azaka will be contributing to that a little bit as well. But I do get quite a lot of lime. You know, the Equinox certainly has a bit of punch to it in this one. I'm getting quite a nice limey hit out of this beer as well. You can smell all of the kind of components you would expect from the hops in this one, but I really think it's the Equinox and the lime that comes to the fore in this one. Now, if you take the beer in quite deeply, if you smell the aroma quite deeply, I mean, if you smell the aroma like that, you get quite a bit of the pungent passion fruit, but you also get some of the lighter kind of pineapple-y notes out of the beer as well, which is quite interesting. But really for me, it's the lime that sits there and lingers, and with the lime you also get the more you smell of that lime, I think it gets a little bit more kind of tangerine-y as well. Actually, you do get more of that, you do get a little bit more of a tangerine-y kind of orangey kind of thing out of this too, which is interesting. So yeah, the aroma to that beer is it's really quite interesting. So yeah, take a bit of time and enjoy the aroma of this one before you get stuck into it. I'm really curious about this just because of how dense it is. You really feel the weight of this one in the glass, and the aroma is a little bit quirky as well. Like I say, there's just almost a hint of a kind of Belgian-y type thing going on with this one too. So take a bit of time to enjoy that, but let's have a taste of this beer and see how we get on. So yeah, this one is called the Haze in Amaze Silver Edition from ODU Brewery, a gypsy brewery based in Latvia. Let's get stuck into this one. Slanjo Skul, or as they say in Latvian, Prieka. Yeah, that's pretty nice actually. I have to say the malty side of this one is quite interesting. It's got a big, you know, it's big, and as I say, big and soupy and gloopy. So yeah, with this beer then, where do we start with this? The malt base is kind of interesting because it's quite, I find it quite bitey, to be honest. I think this beer, for me, it leans towards the kind of, it does lean towards the kind of wheaty, bitey sort of thing. I do get a wee bit of that kind of farmhousey, Belgian-y kind of thing out of this, which is quite interesting. Yeah, the flavour out of this one, I think, is really, it's quite quirky in that sense. There is just a wee bit of a kind of Belgian-y type note coming out of this one. So yeah, let's kind of explore that a little bit more. So yeah, let's try and break this down then. So if you go towards the back third of the palate, this beer, you do get more of the kind of bitey, wheaty notes out of this one. It's got, the wheat has almost just a little bit of kind of spiciness to it as well, which is really interesting. I mean, yeah, that back third of your tongue has a nice kind of slightly thicker white bready note to it. The wheat that's in there, it does have a good little bit of a bitey quality to it, which is interesting. It's really fairly thick actually. There is just a wee bit of a Belgian-y quality to this one. It's quite, I find this beer to be quite yeasty in some ways too. And it's interesting how you've got that contrast with the kind of smoother yeasty notes, but you also have the big bitiness from the wheat there. But yeah, as you move further forward into the middle of the palate, and you will notice the further you go into the aftertaste with this one that the wheat in this one, it does get a little bit more kind of almost spicier the further you go into the aftertaste. But yeah, as you move further forward into the middle of the palate, you really get you start to get more of the oaty creaminess. So in that middle third of your tongue, if you move towards the front half of that, you get a nice little bit of that kind of oaty creaminess to it. If you move a little bit further behind that, you get some of the lighter, kind of crispier, more crisp sort of white bready notes there, and on top of that there is just a wee touch of a biscuity note there. But yeah, I actually find this a very yeasty leaning New England IPA. So that's an interesting point to make about this one. But yeah, it's interesting how it's just interesting how this one goes together. I don't think I've had one that has this kind of sort of yeasty quality to it as well. Yeah, it does almost just have a little bit of a kind of Belgian-y type quality to it, which I find interesting. Yeah, I like how this goes together. Thumbs up to ODU Brewery for this. This does make me quite curious about the other beers, and as I say, if they're going to send me a few to review, you know, that's going to be pretty awesome actually. So yeah, be curious to see what these guys do with a West Coast IPA, if that's the kind of stuff they're doing as well. But yeah, on the hoppy, I think we've covered the malt base as much as we can really. If you go to the front corners of your palate, then kind of go diagonally back a bit, you will get a wee touch of a kind of woody note out of this one as well. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, you've got a good little bit of earthiness coming out of the beer. As you move further forward along the side of the palate there, you do get more of a, you get quite a big kind of spicy floral aromaticity out of this beer, and with all those hops in this one, all of these hops are quite high in terms of their alpha acids, you know, 11, 12, 13, 14% actually. In some cases, you know, you're going to have a big bit of that floral quality, but it's quite interesting because when you go round the front curve of the tongue, it's distinctly more kind of light and grassy actually. But the fruity side of this beer is pretty interesting. It's quite diverse but also quite strong in terms of its how do you say, in terms of its composition. So yeah, this one for me on the fruity side of things, when you go towards the back of the that front third of your palate, you do get quite a nice you get a really strong, quite pungent passion fruity note out of this one. It's almost a bit grapefruity actually, but I'd say more passion fruit. That's the Galaxy, and the Citra will be contributing to that as well. But as you move further forward from that, you do get the mango kind of gradually evolving out of it, and then beyond that you start to get pineapple, and then on the kind of front part of your palate you get a bit more of that kind of oily tangerine note in there, and the lime just sits almost just behind the very kind of front part of the palate. I find the lime flavour in this one is quite pungent. Probably the most pungent fruits for me in this one would be the passion fruit and the lime. These two I think really dominate the fruity side of this beer. But then on the front edge of the palate you get more and more, gradually as you go into the aftertaste, you get more and more of that kind of grassy floral type. You get that it's just got a bit of a grassy zestiness to it, to be honest with you, and the lime really kind of plays into that. So I like how that goes together in this beer, I have to say. Yeah, flavour of this beer is really interesting. It's quite I find this to be a really kind of citrusy, zesty IPA. So on one hand with this beer you've got the big kind of citrusy, zesty sort of thing, but then I think you've got a bit of a bigger kind of yeasty. Well, there's to say, it's almost just a little bit Belgian or farmhouse is maybe a good way to describe that as well. It's got a few kind of, the more and more I go into the aftertaste with this one, you do get a few kind of earthy and sort of woody flavours out of it too. So it's quite an interesting one, this actually. And it's definitely more of one of these kind of farmhousey type New England IPAs. I think that's a fair description of it actually. It's one of the, you do get these when you go to the States actually, and you get some of the beers from Alchemist, and I've had a few from other places like Kent Falls and Connecticut, and what was the other one up there that I had? Allagash maybe. It was reminded me, this beer in some ways, it kind of reminds me of some of the things I've had from like Allagash and from Kent Falls and stuff like that. It's got a little bit of that kind of woodiness and slight earthiness to it, so it's kind of like it's got quite a farmhousey quality to it, that sort of Belgian-y farmhousey type thing, and that is quite akin to the to some of the New England IPAs that you will find up there actually, particularly the lower alcohol ones. This one is 7%, so it's not as low as some of the ones you can get like the New England Pale Ales and things like that. But yeah, it's certainly quite a quirky one in terms of the way the yeast has a really interesting effect in this one, but the rest of the beer is pretty straight shooting. The fruits have a good little bit of complexity to it for sure. It's quite, I find this one to be quite, quite citrusy, but it's also got quite a pungent, tropically citrus to it at the same time. But yeah, the hoppiness, I like the big kind of floral spiciness that this beer has actually. But the further you go into the aftertaste with this one, it is the citrusy zestiness and the floral qualities that just linger there actually. So yeah, this beer, it gets a thumbs up from me. This is quite a quirky one, and I like beers like this that kind of test the palate a little bit. So yeah, have a go at this one for yourself and just see what you think. I think this is a very quirky one, but yeah, I look forward to seeing what their other beers are like as well. So yeah, with this one then, with the mouthfeel, I would say yeah, mouthfeel wise, this beer, it is kind of top end of mid-bodied, bottom end of full-bodied. The carbonation is very smooth. It's got a little bit of it's got a kind of oily slickness to it in fairness. In terms of IBUs, I think this one might be around this one's a bit more bitter. I think this might be around the sort of 50 or 60 IBU mark. It does have a good little bit of that floral note that you get with this one, really gives it a bit more bitterness. So it's got a nice bit of that to it. The malt base, like I say, it has a bit of bitiness. I do get a real wheaty bitiness out of this one. The more that you kind of go into the aftertaste with this one, you do get more of a kind of big wheaty bitiness out of it. You've got a nice yeasty character in there as well. Some nice big floral aromatic notes, and also you've got some really nice kind of juicy fruity sort of things with this beer as well. The fruitiness for me is really big and juicy and New England like actually. It's quite pungent at the same time though. You get a lot of the passion fruit and the lime really just dominating the flavour of this. So yeah, it does get a thumb up from me actually. I like how this beer goes together. It's very quirky. It's not a kind of pardon me, I'd definitely say that this isn't a kind of conventional New England IPA. It's got quite a bit of that Belgian-y farmhousey type quality to it actually. The sort of woody notes that you get out of this one, the woody and earthy notes you get at the back of the palate, and the big spicy wheaty character are the kind of quirky notes in this one for me. But yeah, thumbs up to ODU Brewery for this one. I think this is a really interesting beer, and I think they've done a nice job of it actually. So yeah, it's pretty damn good. So yeah, I look forward to trying a few more of their other beers, so it'll be interesting to see how the other ones turn out when they do arrive here. So yeah, I look forward to that, and hopefully, as I say, in the future I can review a few more Latvian beers for you. I need to try and get a hold of something else from Arpus, because it's been a while since I reviewed them. They've changed the cans and stuff as well actually. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This one was the Haze and Amaze New England IPA, or Haze and Amaze Silver Edition, sorry, a New England IPA coming in at 7% ABV from ODU Brewery, a contract gypsy brewery over in Latvia. And hopefully this is the first of a number of, well, the second of a number of Latvian craft beer reviews that we can do for you here on the channel over the next little while. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from ODU Brewery. You will, thanks to the founders, fingers crossed, see some more beer reviews from these guys at some point in the fairly near future. We'll see how long that takes. I've got a lot of beer to work through at the moment, so yeah, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, thank you again for watching my reviews. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below, and yeah, you will see more Latvian reviews at some point fairly soon. Slanja, Skol, Prijeka, thank you again for watching. This was the Haze and Amaze Silver Edition 7% New England IPA from ODU Brewery over in Latvia. Cheers.